Hey, welcome to Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. Thank you to MD Helicopters for sponsoring this special in-person interview of Jake Durham and Drew Muench from the Oxford Police Department Aviation Unit. The Oxford Police Department chose the MD Helicopters 530F model as their primary airborne mission platform due to its exceptional versatility and performance characteristics tailored to their operational needs. The MD530F agility and maneuverability make it ideal for various law enforcement tasks, including surveillance, search and rescue operations, and aerial patrols. Its powerful Rolls-Royce 250-C30 engine provides reliable performance in both urban and rural environments, crucial for the department's diverse operational landscape. The helicopter's compact size allows for efficient deployment and maneuvering in tight spaces, enhancing operational flexibility during critical missions. Equipped with advanced avionics and mission-specific equipment, the MD530F ensues enhanced situational awareness and operational effectiveness, enabling the Oxford Police Department to uphold public safety and respond swiftly to emergencies across their jurisdiction. To discuss the Oxford Police Department Aviation Unit, Jack Schonely and I get to talk with Lt Jake Durham, the mastermind and commander behind Oxford's Aviation Unit, and Drew Muench, their chief maintenance pilot, inside of Oxford's beautifully purpose-built hangar. Jake Durham, whose deep roots in law enforcement and public safety shaped his aspirations, inspired by his family's legacy and an influential flight with the Alabama State Troopers Aviation Unit in 1997, Jake pursued a career in law enforcement. Starting as a patrolman with the Piedmont Police Department in 2003, he later joined the Oxford Police Department, where he climbed to the rank of lieutenant. Jake's visionary leadership led to the creation of the Oxford Police Department's Aviation Support Unit in 2011. Despite initial setbacks, he meticulously developed the administrative components and overcame challenges in acquiring suitable aircraft. From a motor glider in 2013 to an OH-6 and later a TH-67, Jake's persistence paid off. In 2016, he designed and managed the construction of the department's Special Operations Facility, housing the Emergency Services Unit, Technical Services Unit, and Aviation Support Unit. Jake's dedication continued with the refurbishment of an OH-6 helicopter in 2020 and the procurement of an MD530F in 2021, enhancing the unit's capabilities. Chief Maintenance Pilot Drew Muench's aviation career spans over 3 decades. Starting his flying career in 1983, as a line boy at a small airport, he earned his flight time through dedication and passion. His journey took a pivotal turn in 1988 when he began his path to become a Marine aviator, only to pivot to the Army due to an injury at OCS. Serving 10 years as an Army pilot, he mastered multiple aircraft including the H-1, UH-1, OH-58, and CH-47 Chinook, and became an esteemed instructor pilot. Transitioning to civilian life as an airline pilot, he faced challenges such as furloughs, but found his place at NetJets, where he thrived as a Citation X captain and international training instructor. His dedication to aviation extended to helping establish the Oxford Air Support Unit in 2015, where he continues to guide the unit as chief pilot. Thank you to our special sponsor, MD Helicopters, as well as Garmin and Wysong Enterprises.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, John Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Schonely.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Down by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
Jake, going back to you and your experience in your career here at Oxford, you talked about work patrol and kind of working your way up into admin. Of all the assignments and all the projects you've been a part of, I would imagine aviation was probably one of your most impactful and favorite projects. But aside from aviation, what was the most impactful project that you've been a part of?
I can't say that there was one individual project. In 2014, I got moved from patrol. The chief called me in the office. He said, I'm going to move you. And I thought, man, I'm going into investigations, right? Anything when you're a 10-year patrolman to get off patrol, right? So you say, okay, cool. He said, I want you to be my executive officer. I said, I'm going to do it. I love it. What is it? And he said, well, this is what you'll be doing. So essentially what I did for 8 years was handle the chief's projects in-house. So be it policy or whatever, right? So I had to learn how to use Photoshop and rebrand the entire agency. So we've done all new logos and all that stuff you see. I had to learn how to do all that. So that transitioned up until Oh, around 2018 or 19 is when I developed professional services inside the police department, and that encompasses, the executive officer, the chief, training, standardization. We're essentially quality control for the police department is what professional services did, and it came out of the office of the chief of police and kind of filtered down. So there was a lot of projects within professional services after I developed that I'm super proud to be a part of. I was able to help a lot of people in the agency. I drove myself crazy, but I was very thankful that I had the opportunity to try, and I hope I helped folks anyway, right? So, but I'm super proud of that. I'm very proud of the aviation unit, but that goes without saying.
Yeah,
right. So, but yeah, being a part of that, administrative and learning, I learned so much stuff from being the executive officer, the chief. Yeah, it was interesting.
It's crazy when you look in the rearview mirror and think about how those experiences and those positions lent to the success of what you're doing currently.
Yeah.
You talk in this particular case for you, learning how to navigate, the command staff and the political side of things. I'm sure you learned a lot of that when you're in that assignment.
Sure.
Our conversation with Deb Dickerson, she talked about being in a position where she's having to write standards and SOPs essentially for LAPD. And then she became the chief TFO and started the whole program there, essentially.
The aircrew course.
Yeah, the aircrew course.
She created the 5-day LAPD aircrew course, and she talked about how it went back to when she was writing special orders and writing things that the chief would sign, saying, "This is from me, the chief." Well, it was from Deb. For the chief.
Yeah, same thing.
But she learned how to do it, and it helped her later when she had to battle all the some of it nonsense, but some of it substantial things with the police officer standards, and she knew how to write, and she knew how to talk, and she knew how to work the system in a good way to accomplish what she was doing. And so I'm sure that comes into play almost every day with this. Looking back at that and saying, wow, I'm glad I experienced that. I might not have got this.
Yeah.
Because I learned how to deal with this issue or problem before, unrelated to aviation.
Yeah. And the same thing happened. So working as the chief's XO, he would come to me and I need a 4-page proposal to the Senate about this grant or whatever. Man, if you didn't know how to write, right, and reach that audience like it needed to be, then you were in bad shape. So you had to go back in and take, reoccurrent formal education training to get to, seriously, there's all kind of stuff, be it videography or, writing, whatever it was, you had to learn that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of the stuff you see come out of the chief's office, and he may get mad at me for saying this, but a lot used to, back in my time up there, a lot of the stuff you've seen come out of the chief's office, memos, policies, articles, whatever. It's got his name at the bottom of it. Right?
You wrote it.
I got that.
That's what Deb said.
But that's fine though, because for the most part, our ideals kind of met to what we were. So there was very, very little time when I would take something to him and say, "Hey, you wrote this. Do you like it?" And he's like, "Yeah, that sounds good." So
hey, you had a great idea here, sir.
Yeah, you had a great idea. I like it. But that's okay, because administrators, they need people like that sometimes.
They do.
To come in and help them out.
There's not enough time in the day.
They can't do all that stuff.
For them to do everything.
No, they can't.
Well, I think the reason I brought this up, because I think it's encouraging for folks that might find themselves in an assignment where they're like, this isn't what I signed up to do. I'm doing this administrative stuff, and I really belong doing something else. And we talk about how do you get from the patrol position or some other position to aviation. A lot of people ask that question. How do I do that? And I think the one thing we keep coming back to is do the thing that you're doing now well, whether that's patrol, a job in admin, or wherever you find yourself. Do that job well. That'll speak volumes for who you are as a person, and then that'll precede you as you try and make your way to aviation, SWAT, whatever the thing is. It's just so important. And again, you don't realize how the things you're learning are going to play into your future positions, whatever that position might be.
Yep,
absolutely.
We've had so many guests say exactly that they agree with that. John brings that up, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's the only reason I got this position in aviation is because what I did the prior 5 years, because people were looking at my work ethic or my writing ability or my skill in this or my tactics or my whatever it was, and then they end up in aviation because they've set an example of that's the kind of person we want in this unit. That has nothing to do with, we can teach them to be a TFO. We can teach them if they want to go to the pilot route. We can get them training, that sort of thing. But we need a hard worker with a good work ethic that can do those things. So that theme comes up a lot, doesn't it?
No, I remember growing up as a kid, my dad, if something broke at the house, we had to fix it, right?
Yeah.
We could go out and try to get it. But it was always, hey, we got to fix this, or we got to find some resourceful way to make this work. You do that, and then that culture starts being built in your home, right? And then you go out to work and you come here and something breaks. Well, you don't call the first person, in the book to say, hey, come fix this thing. We learn how to fix it, right? If there's not a part that we have for the aircraft, we learn how to be resourceful and call all these contacts, or we figure out some way to make it work. I say that to say you guys made a good point. Regardless of what position that you're in, do it well. Learn as much as you can from it, because that's going to come into play one day when you really get to the point where you want to be. You'll be surprised what you have learned in the past is going to transfer over to what you're doing now.
Yeah. I think one thing is for sure, folks in aviation, they may have gotten there by accident. They might say they've gotten there by accident, but it wasn't because of a lack of effort. Yeah. Generally, it's taken a lot of concentrated effort and excelling at things that a lot of people don't want to do to get to where we are, because it's such a hard job. Whether you're a TFO, a pilot, whatever, it's a difficult job, requires a lot of attention to detail, and just we got to be top performers. A lot
of dedication.
Yeah,
both seats, a lot of dedication in different ways. Really hard to stay proficient at it. You gotta have the effort.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, I like talking about the funny. A lot of what we do is dealing with the not so intelligent people in society. And
what do you mean, John?
Sure, they're talking about you. It's on the podcast.
That's right.
So, Jake, we'll start with you, and then Drew, I'll transition over to you, and it'll be different, I know, but for you, thinking back to your time patrol, what was the funniest thing that you can remember as far as an incident goes?
I knew that you were going to ask this question, right? And there has not been enough time passed for me to tell you all the crazy stuff that I have done. But
we understand that.
Oh my goodness! No, there's been a lot of stuff that comes to mind. I'll tell you though, getting not necessarily on the road, but as an administrator, I like to cut up, and this is probably a lot to my detriment. I like to cut up and have a good time. I know when to be serious, even though a lot of people think I don't, but I do understand when to be serious. But my chief has got a lot going on, right? So he does not only the stuff in-house, but, he's a member of a lot of different associations, and he works very closely with the legislature and that kind of stuff for different laws and things being passed. He's a huge advocate for public safety in the state of Alabama. He was always, he might have gotten ill a few days that I didn't want to be ill, so I'd go in there and cut up with him, play jokes on him, get him laughing, those kind of things. So throughout the years, I guess it's me picking at the chief has really been some of the most memorable times that I've had.
He'll get a kick out of this. What's the best prank or best thing you ever did to the chief?
I got to be very specific because a lot of this stuff I get me in trouble. But
that's the ones we like. That's the ones we like.
When I first got up as the executive officer, we had a captain. He's still here. He was investigative captain, and he would go in. My chief Partridge. He wears this blazer, and he goes in and takes it off, and he's got a lapel pin on it. And he would go in, and the captain, and he would flip that lapel pin up, and chief would wear it, not knowing, and the lapel flipped up. So I've got a little office across from the chief. I mean, when I say an office, it's a clawoffice. This thing is tiny. It's like a little closet. And I see chief run out of his office, and he goes down, and he tells the captain, he says, if you flip that lapel up one more time, I'm going to break your legs. And he wasn't that nice about it. I'm leaving out a lot of words, but he says, I'm going to break your leg. And I had been there 2 weeks, right? So nobody really knew my sense of humor or thing. So they go to lunch. They come back. Chief takes his jacket off, and he lays it down over the chair. I say, here's my chance. So I run in there, and I flipped that lapel up, and it was that captain's birthday. And he was down there eating cake, man. And the chief we've got concrete floors, but you could hear his stomping his little. He gets down there, he starts cussing at him. I told you I was going to break your legs. And by the time I walk in, he's got him pushed up against the corner. And I'm just smiling, peeking my head. He did it. The chief turns around, looks at me, and I take off running, you know. But it's, you know, it's things like that you don't know you need that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
until
you
sit back down in your desk and you go, man, that was fun, right?
Yeah,
so
we absolutely all need that stuff, or we wouldn't make it through this career.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, this aircraft, this unit, this police department, you know, whatever I may think to be an accomplishment or whatever, is not going to be right. What's ultimately important to me is being able to leave all this, go to the house, smile, and have a good time. Yep. You know, I'm not going to be able to take any of this with me, but the time I get to cut up with my guys and have a good time, that's really what it means to me. And I sincerely mean that. I mean, it's fun for me to.
We've witnessed it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Happily, it's been great.
That's cool. We take ourselves so serious a lot of the time. It's fun to break down and do what you're talking about.
Yeah, if you get too serious, I've seen and experienced people actually forget who they are.
Yeah,
and I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. Switching gears to you, Drew. We had actually we didn't get to talk to it with Al Mack, but reading Al Mack's book, Razor 03, talks about some of the shenanigans that take place. Yeah. And in his book, he talks about a war they had between the two different groups, and one of them involved shaking up a Coke can, opening it like a grenade and throwing it in their bunk. Did you experience anything like that?
Thank you to our sponsors, MD Helicopters. MD Helicopters is a leading light helicopter manufacturer for civil and military operators worldwide. We build safe, agile, hard-working light helicopters that consistently deliver reliable performance. As a result, our operators enjoy superior confidence, backed by durability that enables more uptime.
Well, we did quite a few tricks with each other and on neighboring units, but probably the most fun I can probably talk about is when we'd haze the new lieutenants, new platoon leaders. So they come in and like a gun platoon leader being. So his young second lieutenant has now got 7 warrants as their Cobra pilots, right? And we go to the field the first time, and these guys, man, they just want to do the best they can, right? So they come in and ask, what do I need to keep? Well, Lieutenant, I think you need to go get a box of grid squares and make sure, don't let this happen again. Make sure you get the keys to the training areas too. So those are the kind of things that we would do.
Keys to training areas. Yep. I haven't heard that before. That's good.
And don't forget the bucket of rotor wash.
Most of them, none of them fell for that. So we had to grid squared.
Had to get more sophisticated than rotor wash.
Yeah.
That brings up the hazing is a term that isn't politically correct anymore, but it's not hazing. It's not a bad thing. It's kind of a rite of passage for a lot of these folks coming into these programs. For you guys here, are there any rites of passage? You know, before we get into it, I will say there's an agency in Southern California that they're doing great stuff. Their new guys wear a name tag that says FNG.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, man, I didn't know you could do that anymore, but they do, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But again, it's not hazing. It's kind of a rite of passage, and it's fun, right? So to that end, do you have any kind of...
I don't know that anything
I wouldn't say it's
out
hazing. We don't really haze anybody much anyway.
Well, we don't really have any, new guy traditions or, any of that stuff.
What we will do...
Dakotas, we better do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say what we do is if somebody's interested in becoming part of the ASU, we'll have them come on over, spend some time with us, We feel them out, they feel us out, and see if they think they'll fit. That's probably about the most we would do with something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that if I want you to use the we fill them out, you fill them out thing. So we'll let him edit that part. So if you want to do that again, you want more than welcome to do that again. All right, and go.
I think we have them come to the unit and see if they're a good fit for our personalities.
There you go.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So we've changed from a formal sign up and all this other stuff, and we found that it just gets too bureaucratic to go through all of that. I mean, I'm not going to give somebody an aptitude test that's walking upright and we've given them a badge and a gun. We get it. You can, there's no sense in me trying to formally test you out for this thing. But if you want to be a part of the ASU, doors open. Give me a call. if you want to guys, I mean, if you want to come over here and help us out, this is when we're working. And they'll come over and they'll sweep the floor, or, you know, and you really start taking inventory of those people and saying, okay, what is the work ethic? You know, what kind of ideals does this guy have? What kind of values? And then we start moving in the right direction. We just had a young lady that hadn't been with us about a year now.
Yeah.
She came over and took an introductory flight, and she's super excited to try to become a TFO one day. She's got another year on the road before she's eligible. So, but yeah, she'll be able to come over here. And I said, whatever you want to do, come over and we'll make it work. It's nice for us to be able to pick people that actually want to be here because they walk through the door.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, what you say is awesome. And I think that's important for what you said, for us to be able to look at them and be like, I like the work ethic, or I do not like the work ethic.
Right.
We had someone show up to our unit at one time. We were on 312s. So as part of the 312s, that your payback day, you could pick an assignment you wanted to go to down the road. You can go spend a day with them. So we had a person show up at Aviation who potentially wanted to go to Aviation. They came in and found the couch and put their feet up on the coffee table and read a magazine for the whole day. And that person never made their way to Aviation.
Yeah. They didn't?
But
Wow.
you'd think, you know, if you're going to go to a special ops section,
right,
you're not going to, you know,
That's
put yourself on the
incredible.
couch and
Right.
put your feet up. But it is, you know, for us, it was great that that person did that.
Yeah.
You know, because it says a lot.
Because
Yeah.
it might have been their real personality was exposed there, which you can hide in an oral interview.
Right.
You know, I mean, we've all seen that where people come into an oral interview and knock it out of the park and they end up being worthless, or the vice versa. They come in and they stumble through the oral, but yet they make it and they end up being one of your most valuable employees ever.
Yeah.
I can think of both in my own unit where everybody would agree who they are and who they were. It just happens. So that just showed what that person was really made of.
And you don't want a bad personality or bad traits exposed in a sterile cockpit later down the road, right?
Yeah.
So you can filter that out before you get to that point,
Right.
hopefully. So
For you guys, you've evolved. You've now found that you like bringing people in, having them, you know, get some, not feeling them up, but get some experience.
Feel them out.
Out, not up.
I heard out or up. So that's kind of an informal part of the process. When you move to the formalized part of your selection process, what does it look like? When someone comes up here, I'm assuming they're part-time and then full-time, and what does that look like?
we're still trying to transition people into full-time employees, but that's going to take the support of the administration and a dedicated budget, which is something we haven't talked about, but as it pertains to our unit. Yeah, so the formal process in the past was, hey, here's a sign up. If you're interested, sign up, and then we'll do some testing on, general SOPs and geographical area and 10 codes, 11 codes, whatever. And then once they pass that process, then they can move forward. And then it was a gut check to make sure you're going to be okay in the aircraft. And then we started a little bit of formal training. Hey, this is how you use the camera. Let's set up a perimeter. And should we decide to go with that person, that means that they were able to, demonstrate the skills needed on the camera to be able to do that, just basic skills. So that was the more formal process of it, and then we'd move forward. And keep in mind, we're a small unit, so we don't have a TFO training program that's going to last 6 months or a year or whatever.
Right.
I mean, we get these folks in, get them trained up as quickly as possible, and they can still work calls as they're learning. I mean, we have to do what we have to do. So the only full-time TFO I've got right now is Cowbird. That's the only full-time.
Wait, what's his name?
Cowbird.
Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a story.
You got to tell the story.
Yeah, so that's the only time. So, yeah, okay, Cowbird. Cowbird is he's my full-time TFO. He just came over not too long ago, and we were traveling to Orlando, APSCON. He's a country boy. He's from over Mumford, just right over the creek over there. Anyway, so Cowbird comes in. We're headed to Florida, and I said, yeah, where you're always getting close to the beach when you see these little white birds flying around. It was not seagulls. It was just some kind of little white bird. Cowbird. He says, man, them cowbirds. I said, they're what? He said, those cowbirds. He said, look, right by the pasture out there, and you can see these cows and these white birds just sitting on it. I said, oh, my God. So sure enough, we go down there, there's cowbirds all over these damn cows. Anyway, so from then on, I said, you know what? Yeah, you're right, because he was giving me a hard time. So, yeah, I told you I was right. So from now on, your name's Cowbird. So when we got to APSCON, ask Glenn White and those other folks, right? everybody knows him as Cowbird now. And it's right here on his name tag. If
He's the only one that has his name tag with it.
Yeah, has his nickname up there on his name tag. So, but yeah, so it's Cowbird. But anyway, you bring these guys in and they get really proficient. And then I've got Nick Reeves is one of my TFOs who, I knew that social media was going to be impactful for ASU. I just knew it was going to be something that we had to have. The citizens want to know what they're buying. This don't belong to us.
Yep.
It's theirs.
Right.
So I tried to get on social media and Facebook and that kind of stuff and say, look, this is what we're doing. And Nick got with me and he said, hey, look, Jake, what do you think about me doing this? He didn't tell me that I was terrible at it. He should have. I wouldn't. It wouldn't have bothered me. But so I said, Nick, you want to do your thing, buddy, and see what you got. And man,
he does great.
Oh my God,
Nick does a really nice job.
That was so funny too.
Yeah. Nick's our media guy, so he does, all of our coins and T-shirts, hats, all that cool stuff, and social media and everything.
Back up to gut check. You said gut check to see if they're good in the aircraft. What do you do specifically?
We just do normal maneuvers. We may do.
They go up in the aircraft and how long a flight and normal maneuvers?
20 minutes maybe,
just to see what happens.
Yep.
Yeah, and some people can't
like
do
it.
that.
Yep. Some people don't like it.
Yeah.
And Drew usually handles all that stuff for us, right? So he likes to take care of that initial process for us.
That's a good thing. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, and you can learn something very valuable. And most people, it's been my experience, because we had TFOs in training every month of every year for the 19 years I was there, and most people don't get over it. There's some that do. I can think of a few that got sick and they got over it and they ended up being at air support for the rest of their career, but most could not get through it, and it's in them, and you just say, hey, we're sorry. You just can't do it. Come back and try again, maybe. Maybe something will change in you, but you can't learn feeling crappy, for one thing. And that was our big thing. This is a really hard job. We believe it's the hardest job in law enforcement, tactical flight officer. If you're not feeling well, you will never learn this job. No. Because we got to be able to communicate. You got to talk. You got to feel comfortable here. If you're going, oh man, I think I'm gonna puke, you are not gonna figure out even the simplest of tasks.
The ones we've done it to several of the people that we brought on board. And one of the coolest thing from my standpoint that I see is when they get up in the air for the first time in a helicopter, they may have been a patrol officer years, know this place like the back of their hand. Oh, yeah. But it's sort of like, hey, so where do you think you are? Oh, man, it's different up here. Yeah, it's different up here. But then by the end of that flight, you got them using the camera a little bit, looking around, and it's just a confidence builder for them.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. A lot of people, we would take up patrol officers on ride along, and we'd say, where do you live? You live in the city? Yeah, I do. What's the address? Oh, so we'd go, we'd take them right to the address because we know how to do that. Say, well, which house is it? We knew which house it was. Which house is it? This isn't my neighborhood. We go, are you sure? No, this isn't my neighborhood. And I texted my wife to bring the kids out. You mean those kids right there? And that happened a lot. Yeah, people don't realize that is how difficult it can be. In some ways, it's easier when you're up there, but in other ways, it's something you've never experienced. It's unique, and a lot of people couldn't find their own house. So it just adds to the uniqueness of aviation and law enforcement, no doubt.
That's another good, you can tell if they're looking and they're actively engaged at that point, then you know they don't have an illness issue.
Yes.
So, because they wouldn't be able to do that at all.
No, they'd be really feeling bad.
Earlier, we were talking about some of the training you guys do on the ground. You talked about tabletop exercises. Those are so valuable. Just talking through setting a perimeter or talking through an emergency procedure or whatever the thing might be. You guys spend a lot of time doing tabletop exercises. Can you talk about how you utilize those scenarios?
Thank you to our sponsor, Wysong Enterprises. Wysong Enterprises offers specialty rotorcraft completion facility, focusing on solutions and installs for customers in various industries, including EMS, law enforcement, energy utility, forestry, tourism, security, and corporate applications across major OEM platforms. Visit us at wysongusa.com.
Yeah, Drew, why don't you talk?
Yeah, so our tabletop, and this is something I got to take my head off to Trevor Riley, who we brought in from San Diego. He brings a wealth of experience into that. And he is very gifted at setting up little scenarios for guys. And he'll set up a scenario and the guys will walk through it on the ground, which is very helpful. And of course, we have our simulator now, so we can actually get guys up and do auto rotations, emergency procedures, whatever. We're going to start finding instruments, by the way, on that with you. So that tool is wonderful too. And these guys come in on their own. And you walk in, you'll have Nick in the simulator doing auto rotations, so that's pretty cool. But as far as the table talk goes, blade time's expensive. Everybody knows that, right? And if you can talk about the scenario before you go do the scenario, you'll get more out of the scenario. Mm-hmm. So it's a walk, crawl, run kind of theory that we're using. We'll even, our TFOs are part-timer guys except for full-time. So they'll be here 2-3 days a month maybe. It's always good to refresh their memory on the camera before we go so that they can get the muscle memory back down again, changing the cameras, changing the, HDIO, the IR back and forth and setting your gain and all that stuff so they can play with it on the ground a little bit before they go so that when they're up in the air and we are responding to calls, it's much more efficient and at least they're not fumbling through how to use everything. So it does take a little bit extra time, but it's well worth it.
And I know people are going to listen to this and some of them are going to say, well, why would you even have TFOs if you have to do that with them every time? We don't have to do that with them, obviously, every time they come back in, but we're playing the cards we've been dealt, right? This is the resource that we have, and we try to utilize it the best we can. So, if every quarter, if Drew wants to sit down or I do, and we want to do a refresher on the camera and that kind of thing, that goes for us too. Yeah. Because, as pilots, we don't get a lot of right seat time a lot of times. So, we do that. That's not to say that the TFO loses that much proficiency where he has to be fully trained again. That's not the case. But we table talk everything, right? So we table talk. We talked about it today, Jack.
We did.
About how do we get the little first aid kit out of the aircraft onto the ground if somebody needs it. So we talked about that. What are the different scenarios? What are the safety concerns? Where's the placement of that first aid kit going to be in the aircraft to be more advantageous for us to get out to the officers on the ground? So we table talk all kind of stuff, and it's all. I mean, if we're not doing that and we're just playing on our phones, we might as well go home. Yep. Right. So we're always training on something.
I loved that conversation that we had about that because it's so important. The little things that we take for granted are not necessarily the little things when it's around an aircraft with rotor blades going and a tail rotor that you can't see. And I mean, you add all these elements and you go, just walking up to a helicopter has significant risk if you don't think about it ahead of time. I mean, that's the simplest one I can think of. So tabletops are wonderful for that. And we also talked about how TFO skills are very perishable.
Yep. Absolutely.
Very perishable. I mean, the automatic stuff of flipping a frequency or the camera, the buttons, there's more buttons and dials and stuff than ever. And if you get away for that for a month, just a month, you got to come back and really think about that. So, and there's more mission equipment than ever. So I think the tabletop's a great idea.
Yeah, and I'll get my hats off goes to my TFOs. And, I got Kevin Mitchell, Chris Steffens, Josh Hardiman, David Cash is one of our GSOs, Nick Reeves, and of course Cal Bird being one of our TFOs. These guys, this is their supplementary assignment in conjunction with what they're doing primarily at the police department. Steffens is a patrol sergeant. Josh Hardiman, he's an investigation sergeant. Nick is all over the place. He, who knows what this guy's doing. Yeah. But everybody works these off-duty jobs. So hats off to them for coming in and still wanting to learn the process and still want to be involved and still want to do good things because it's very difficult on them, right?
Yeah.
I remember being the XO and trying to get flight time. Couldn't get any flight time.
Yeah, whenever we did, we'd have to land because you had to call by the chief.
And so I'd be up 20 minutes trying to get some stick time, and I'd get a phone call from chief or a text, and I had to jump back down. So I understand how it is going back and forth. Yeah. So those guys who still want to be involved and still want to get up in this aircraft, I mean, it's inherently dangerous. We're not meant to fly, right? So to get up there and do the things that they do, my hat's off to. I enjoy working with them.
It's harder, much harder, to be a part-time TFO than a full-time TFO.
100%.
Not in the beginning, it's the same, but once you get experience as a full-timer, there's a point where you just kind of go, whoo, I think I got this. as a part-timer, you got to work every single time to get that. That's harder, and I admire them as well, that they come back, they keep at it. It can, I'm sure it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
It can be infuriating at times where you go, man, why can't I remember that? Or why can't I get that done? Where is that menu again to get this? I know what I want. Oh, here it is. Whereas a full-timer's going, duh, you know? So I admire the people that are doing it part-time and still putting the effort in. It's hard.
And you can't get irritated if something inside the cockpit with a piece of mission equipment goes wrong because you can't find your way back. I've done it before, right?
Yeah.
You can't get irritated about that. You just have to understand that they're working through the problem. They're doing the best they can. Work with what you got, and we'll do the best we can with it. You can't get irritated about it. Just come back, keep training, keep working it. If they keep walking through that door, and I see them on the simulator, I see them sitting down reading the FLIR manual or whatever, and they do, it's okay. I got the right guy.
You do.
Yeah.
We're heading in the right direction.
Well, you've got an interesting way of provoking conversation that one stems new ideas or reinforces existing protocols that you have in place. Can you talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah.
He's trying to keep this quiet.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit. A lot of times I will invoke arguments.
Spirited conversations.
Yeah. Spirited conversations. I like that, John.
Trevor's laughing as he's walking upstairs.
Yeah. So a lot of times those little jabs to get people going are intentional, because I noticed that just like in every profession, a lot of us will sit around and we'll get stagnant if we're not careful, and we get complacent.
Yes.
I'll come down and see guys on their phone, including myself. Sometimes we'll just be tired and beat and cutting up and laughing. And then things will get said to kind of heat people up a little bit, and that'll spur a conversation. And that heated conversation will really turn into some good, productive ideas at the end of the day. And I like that. I like people engaged. Because when we're just sitting here looking at our phones, flipping or doing whatever, and we're not looking at each other while we're talking, you're not going to remember what's being said. But if I can get you irritated enough to put that phone down and look me in the eye and talk to me, well, you're going to remember that conversation.
Yeah.
And you're going to remember it with everybody at the table. And that's when pen and paper starts coming down. And that's when ideas go from this to then we start transferring them into policy. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to start practicing this idea. And so, yeah, it's intentional a little bit of time. Yeah. So don't tell my
we'll keep that real quiet.
Yeah.
Right, everybody?
But no, it's important because we find ourselves in a position when you do something for so long, the question becomes, why are you doing that? You're like, man, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Other than because that's what I've always been told.
We always do it that way.
Yeah.
We've always done it that way. That's why we do it.
Yeah. So
okay.
It's neat that you're kind of poking at that and you're like, well, why?
Right.
What's the purpose and benefit of doing this?
Let's talk about it. It may need to change at this point. That's fine. Yeah. Trevor just changed our checklist for the 530.
Yep, sure did.
Totally great. Totally fine.
Yeah.
I found something that needs to go back on the checklist today, but it's because we're thinking about it. We're talking about it. We're not just sitting here saying, yeah, I remember in, 2002, we had this same checklist, and wait a minute, things can change.
Yep.
We can have new ideas about this and new policies.
And Trevor came from a unit that took checklists extremely seriously.
Right.
I mean, I flew in with San Diego a bunch of times, know a bunch of those guys.
Yeah.
They took that extremely seriously, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's a good thing, because there's units that don't.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's going to bite you.
Yep.
It's going to bite you. You're going to miss something. You're going to miss a switch. You're going to miss something. And it's not good. So I wasn't surprised when you said Trevor worked on your checklist, because I thought, I immediately thought, well, duh, he's from San Diego PD.
Right.
And I know what they do with checklists. They're serious. So,
yeah. And Trevor himself he's pretty meticulous when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You won the lottery there too.
Oh, easy, Jack.
I know you do, but
I'm just kidding. Trevor's done a phenomenal job. Now Drew and I have especially Drew, like getting us to the point from the perspective of flying the aircraft and CRM and, those kind of things. Yeah, Drew had that. I mean, we heard, a few minutes ago, how many hours you got? Like 72,000 or whatever it is?
I don't count. I've stopped counting over 20,000.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, he's got tons of hours and experience, but from a tactician standpoint, Trevor really brought all of that stuff to light here for the police department, for us. And we're really starting to push that forward. So it's been good.
He came from a unit that has been considered in the industry one of the most progressive, forward-thinking units in the country.
Yeah.
I've always said that.
That's cool.
Even though our unit worked in a completely different manner, they have always been on the front edge And so he came into that unit, into that culture, and I love that he's bringing it now to you.
Yep.
It will do nothing but benefit you for the future.
It already has. I mean, he's made our camera operators so much better.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that was the culture there.
Yep.
They lived on that, and so that's great, and that's going to trickle down to all the other young TFOs that are going to be around him and others, because others are going to say, well, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how it is here. Oh, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow, and it becomes the culture here, and that's a good thing.
So at the end of the day, you've built this program. It's phenomenal, from the ground up, literally. You've got the world's best equipment operating to support the boys and girls on the ground doing the job that we do. Now, today, looking back on some of the missions that have been accomplished because aviation is here, what's some of the most impactful missions or apprehensions that you can think of that have happened only because aviation was here?
I'll let Drew answer this one. He's been a part of some of those, so I want him to.
We've had a lot of fun missions. We've had a lot of impactful missions. But if I was to say just one, and the reason I say this one is because everybody, from our guys on the ground to our EMAC, everyone worked so well together. It was 2 July 4ths ago. An elderly woman was abducted out of her driveway. And the first call we got was a missing person. So you need to go look in this field. Okay, so we go look in this field. So we're looking in this field and like, this just doesn't make any sense. So then we had a guy, a cowbird was on the ground. He's in patrol that day. It was in a jurisdiction. He actually knew the lady. So he drove over to the house where she lived at. And that was where the sheriff was for Calhoun County, right? And he kind of said, hey, I'm with the aviation unit, and what do you guys need? And they found out that she had been abducted out of her driveway. They realized her groceries were spilled there. Her sunglasses are gone. Her on the ground. The door was open to the house. So from that point on, we had other TFOs that were working because it was an all-hands deck on the 4th of July. So we had guys here that would be relaying to our EMAC, relaying to us.
What's EMAC?
Our Eastern Alabama Metro Crime Center. Okay. So and they had cameras everywhere, right? So that information got filtered to our guys on the ground and filtered it to us. And from the time we got the initial call to the time we recovered her was only 2 hours.
Wow.
So, and that to me, that was where every asset that we had worked together to do it. So our crime center, the guys on the ground, the aviation unit, and then that's why I picked that one unit. And we've had cool car chases and we've had big drug busts, but as a whole, that was probably the most rewarding mission because everything worked.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's a really serious crime that normally doesn't end well.
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah, it's really neat to look at the end product being that call. Yeah. When you first put that pen to paper and came up with the idea, that's what you're looking for.
That's it.
Finding that lady and taking care of that situation. I want to go backwards a little bit. We started talking about social media. And this is an important topic, I think, because so many agencies are so behind the curve, in my opinion, when it comes to social media, because in all reality, that's the way 90% of people consume information today, whether we like it or not. What I think is interesting is most agencies trust us enough to give us a gun, a police car, and a helicopter, but not the keys to a social media account to promote something positively that we work with every day. But how did you guys overcome the battle to promote your unit via social media?
Thanks to our sponsor, Garmin. The Garmin GI-275 digital flight instrument is now approved for MD500 helicopters, giving operators the ideal upgrade option for replacing obsolete mechanical gauges with reliable solid-state electronics. Get details at garmin.com/GI-275 heli.
There wasn't a battle. So I got the approval from the chief years ago to start social media specifically for the aviation unit. And he agreed. He just said, don't be dumb, right? I mean, it's a pretty easy,
straightforward.
Yeah, pretty easy and straightforward thing for an administrator to do. It's because it's vague and, you can get your butt busted for doing, dumb stuff, right? So, and that's anything that he deems to be dumb. So he said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Just don't do dumb stuff. So I did. And I realized a lot of humility has to come into leadership stuff. When you realize you're not good at something, it's okay to not put yourself in the position to try to do that. So when I found that Nick was really, really good at it, hey, you've got this, run with it. If you have any questions, let me know. Don't do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So I gave it to Nick, and Nick has really taken his spin on it, and mine are completely different, but he has really captured and captivated the audiences looking at it. So there wasn't a struggle or any challenges when it came to it. I have gotten a few phone calls from the chief that says, why did you allow this to be put on there? And, that's because we thought it was the best thing to do. And usually I don't get in any trouble or anything.
That's the official answer.
And if I do get in trouble, I'll take it and not tell anybody. Just move on.
That's the official how our social media got started.
Yeah.
The funny story was, so Nick goes, hey, we really need social media. All of us look at each other like, yeah, go ahead. Whatever you want. Run with that. So he's like, I'll do it. So our first ones I remember we took, it was memorable for us because we were going to fly into ABSCON in New Orleans, right? So we're flying in, the helicopters landing and putting in the convention center. So he started videoing that. And that was like the first one he put together. So we brought our aircraft in and put it in there, and we all go to the hotel. We're all sitting around the bar, having dinner and having drinks. And he goes, hey, man, that video I posted got 1,300 likes. And then by the end of dinner, it was like 11,000.
Wow.
Like, holy crap.
Wow.
So
I completely forgot about all that.
Yeah, that was how it started.
I thought you was fixing to say something I hadn't heard about. Okay. So all the beans are being spilt here on the Hangar Z podcast. No, but that's good. I'm glad that I don't remember that.
Next, we're going to make you cry.
Oh yeah,
that's one thing. We get beans to be spilled, and then we try and make you cry.
Yeah, okay.
So at least that's what Deb said.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about the citizens; they're entitled to see where their tax money goes, and I 100% agree with that. Another side benefit of social media is recruitment.
Yeah.
We talked to Trevor Riley yesterday, and he knew of Oxford because of your guys' social media account.
That was the greatest story.
Yeah.
That alone was worth having social media.
Absolutely.
You were able to capture somebody that would have never known about you if you didn't have that out there, and he wouldn't be walking through this hangar right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah,
what a great story.
I think as we continue to march down this road where we're having problems with recruitment, that's got to be one of the easy low-hanging fruit when it comes to the solution for some of that stuff. You put a cannon operator, aviation program on social media, and it draws people.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that I see the most commonly, trending social media accounts in law enforcement.
Well, that's why Cowbird came to us. So Cowbird was in the Air Force, and he transferred over to us under the Skills Bridge program. So he worked for us for about 6 months, but he was still employed with the Air Force.
Wow.
And then he came to work with us, and with the intention, hey, within 2 years, I'm going to spend my time on patrol and that kind of stuff, and I really want to start trying to merge over into ASU. He was a A-10 jet propulsion.
Engine mechanic.
Yeah, engine mechanic.
Oh.
So he did that kind of stuff. So we had a little bit of experience with aviation and all that. So that's what got him here.
Yeah.
Was the aviation unit. So yeah, it works out pretty well. I mean, it's a good recruitment tool, like you said, and we use it to our benefit quite often.
Drew, going back to you, you're the second chief pilot we've now interviewed who's a civilian. We talk about some of the challenges that you guys face as civilian pilots in a law enforcement role. Can you talk about some of the challenges you may have had and how you've overcome some of that?
So when I first came here, we had an aircraft, but we sent it off, so we didn't really have one at the time. So what we did is I went and rode along with the guys so that I can kind of get an idea of what we can do for the guy on the ground. So that was beneficial because I think it was fun too, but also kind of got me into realizing what the mission, because I didn't have any prior law enforcement experience. Air observer, Cobra pilot, we did that, and those missions are surprisingly similar.
They are.
So that was not a big leap for me. So I did have that background, but the law enforcement background, I still have a lot of questions about all this stuff. I like use my lights. They tell me I can't use my lights all the time. I don't know what that's all about, but that has been a little bit of and that's one of the things we're so glad we got Trevor, because that's his wheelhouse. You know what I mean? So I feel like as the chief pilot and the maintenance guy here, I provide a solid platform for these guys to do their job. I do the pilot training, TFO training, and then Trevor does the tactics. So I think between the two of us, we got it covered pretty well. So that has been very helpful for me. And I guess if you're coming with just straight civilian, no military aero observer or any kind of tactical flying, it might be a little bit more of an obstruction, but
Yeah.
it seemed like it was okay for me. And like I said, I'm learning more about the law enforcement every day too.
Yeah,
That makes sense to me because we've talked, when we talk to the military side, they always talk about the customers, especially the 160 guys. They specifically use that term. And we say, well, that's what we do too. Our patrol officers are our customers. We're trying to please them. We're trying to support them. We're trying to do everything we can to keep them safe, all those things. So that mindset is half the mission. The rest of it is going to come. And you just keep asking questions. And next thing you know, you go, wow, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this this police tactic stuff. You know,
a lot of it was reading. I read like Kevin Means' book, Tactical Flying, and that was how I modeled our TFO training program. That's how we started the TFO training program. I brought ahead the military air true training manual where we would get task condition standard for each pilot maneuver, and then I would just add TFO maneuvers from that book and kind of just made a task condition standard for those and moved it forward, just trying to keep everything standardized that way.
Yeah.
And it seemed to help. And then, like I said, Trevor, he knows all those guys from San Diego.
Yeah, you worked with them?
I worked with them. No, so
they are legends in his unit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he got to learn from some of the best.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. Again, looking backwards, you guys have built a phenomenal program from the ground up, and it's neat to see that. And again, being a purpose-built hangar with purpose-built MD530 aircraft for the specific purpose that you guys have defined and are supporting the men and women on the ground, apprehending bad guys and finding the good guys. Yeah, I like that saying.
Yeah.
Just really cool to see that in person. And I commend you guys for all the hard work you put in. I know you guys have come up against a lot of roadblocks, and you haven't let it deter you from the overall goal of what we're sitting here talking about.
Right.
So as we kind of wrap this up, any closing thoughts from you, Jake?
I just am amazed at how much I learned today and how impressive this unit is in such a short period of time. I get around a little bit with the class. I've been around the world. I get to have conversations like we just had with people, and there's a lot of positives here, a lot, and you're still growing, and you're still and you still have goals, which is really great too. You're not just saying, "Oh, we got it," and then leveling off. No, there is no leveling off. You keep climbing. And the last thing that I would want to say is thank you so much for having us. The hospitality's been fantastic. The flight was great. The photo shoot was great with Brent. You guys have been wonderful, and it made our job much easier.
It was our pleasure.
Due to you folk, to all of you. So thank you from me personally, and thank you from the Hangar Z. And I got my bucket list item, MD 530F off my checklist. I've been in one now, so that makes me excited too. So thanks.
When you bring that up, it's a flashback for me when Jeff and I went to MD's facility and did some flying with them, and Jeff likens his experience to a drug addict being clean for some time and then getting another hit. When he went there, he was hooked again. You know? And I know you and Jeff have known each other for quite a while, and you guys are friends.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big draw for him, wanting to come here and fly with you guys. Just get a chance to fly the MD again. Yeah. But man, again, that's an impressive place. The training grounds out there.
Yes.
It's top tier, getting to fly low level, seeing wild horses running above the river that's flowing out there. And did you get a chance to land on that rock out there?
Oh yeah.
They're doing toe ins on that memorial or Indian rock or whatever it is.
Yeah. Are you talking about the rock out there? There's a specific rock out there?
The rock.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we seen the rock. Hey, CJ, if you're listening to this, thanks for showing me the rock.
The rock.
Yeah, CJ is awesome.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts or last kind of things you'd like to throw out for anybody that might be listening?
No, not. Look, if you're gonna try to start an aviation unit, just understand that you're gonna have a lot of challenges that you are not expecting to have. So learn that no is okay. That you just should be fuel to keep going. So if it's something that you really, really want to accomplish, I promise you will find a way to make this happen. So we're actually, we're proof, man. We can make this thing work. So if you need anything, just give me a call.
Awesome.
Just look at the two of us. We brought this,
And don't forget about all these. I want to say thank you to all of my my guys that are willing to come over here to this aviation unit and really put the time and effort that it takes to make this thing grow and succeed, because they've got a lot on their plates. Drew's got a full-time job, man. This, he's week on, week off with NetJets, but he's over here when he's off. So all of these guys are across the street working their butts off, trying to take care of their families and their primary responsibilities, but they're still over here. They're still walking through the door, still showing up on the simulator, still getting in the aircraft, and they're doing their thing. So I really, really appreciate my guys.
Talking on NetJets, final kind of conversation to have is a lot of pilots are leaving law enforcement or public safety aviation as a whole and going to the airlines. NetJets is, I've heard NetJets come up quite a few times as a place people like to end up. What's your, I know you've had a good experience with NetJets, but what's your advice for folks that might be considering a move from public safety aviation into the airlines?
It's a different world, but it's boring compared to the law enforcement mission. I mean, it really is. Takeoffs and landings about all you got.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't argue with the pay. Okay, so I would say that you get to go to a bunch of cool places, but as a whole, the industry right now is opened up for it. So, if you didn't want to do the law enforcement thing anymore, or reached up what you figure is a plateau, the fixed wing side's still an option.
Are you seeing a trend of the kind of the tide turning as far as the job market in the airline industry? I'm seeing a couple of carriers talking about layoffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and actually, this has just hit maybe within the last month or two. A lot of them are slowed down, and a lot of it has to do with the Boeing, and they're not able to produce aircraft because they're having issues right now. Even Airbus isn't able to fulfill their orders, so guys are still retiring, but they're not able to get enough new aircraft to warrant that expansive hiring that they had right now. So I think all three majors have slowed or stopped hiring for this year. Doesn't mean they won't start again in January, but for this year they have. And I know some of the low-cost carriers, like I think Spirit's getting ready to furlough some people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's cooled off a little bit, but it's still an option.
Yeah. When you look back over your career in the airline industry, you talk about the ups and downs and the kind of the cycle of hiring and layoffs. How's that been as a pilot in that industry to kind of weather that?
Well, I got it knocked out in my first 7 months. I got all of it done.
Right.
I got furloughed. I got junior man displaced and went on strike in my first 7 months. Ever since then, it's been pretty smooth.
Did you carry a sign on a picket line?
Yeah, I had to do that too. Yeah. So
Are you gonna do that here when I upset you one day?
I might just pick it out here.
Yeah. How about you just send me an email instead?
Well, guys, man, it's been awesome.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
great.
Been talking to you guys and looking forward to Jack's class tomorrow and breaking some bread with you guys at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll catch you later.
See ya.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Wysong Enterprises. Wysong Enterprises offers specialty rotorcraft completion facility, focusing on solutions and installs for customers in various industries, including EMS, law enforcement, energy utility, forestry, tourism, security, and corporate applications across major OEM platforms. Visit us at wysongusa.com. Thanks to our sponsor, Garmin. The Garmin GI-275 digital flight instrument is now approved for MD500 helicopters, giving operators the ideal upgrade option for replacing obsolete mechanical gauges with reliable solid-state electronics. Get details at garmin.com/GI-275heli. Thank you to our sponsors, MD Helicopters. MD Helicopters is a leading light helicopter manufacturer for civil and military operators worldwide. We build safe, agile, hard-working light helicopters that consistently deliver reliable performance. As a result, our operators enjoy superior confidence, backed by durability that enables more uptime.
As we conclude this special episode of the Hangar Z podcast, we've had the privilege to delve into the extraordinary achievements of the Oxford Police Department's aviation unit. Protecting the public is a multifaceted challenge that requires constant vigilance, dedication, and strategic coordination across various sectors. Law enforcement agencies face the daunting task of safeguarding communities amidst evolving threats and complex environments. From preventing crime and responding to emergencies to ensuring public safety during natural disasters and pandemics, the responsibilities are immense. With those challenges in mind, Oxford PD's choice of the MD530F model as their primary airborne mission platform speaks volumes about its exceptional versatility and performance, perfectly tailored to their operational needs. The MD530F's agility, powered by the Rolls-Royce 250 C30 engine, ensures reliable performance in diverse environments, both urban and rural, that helps Oxford PD rise to the challenge of protecting its citizens and visitors. Stay tuned to the Hangar Z podcast for more inspiring stories and insights from the world of public safety aviation. Cheers.
Time to close up the hangar. Thanks for joining us on the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.